it's that time of the week again. It's time for Chit Chat Across the Pond. This is episode number 822. This was recorded on September 24th, 2025, and I'm your host, Allison Sheridan. Well, this week our guest is Adam Engst from Tidbits again, and I got to tell you guys, one of my favorite things about Adam is how much he is my people. Both of us get a topic, and we can't quite get the answer that we were looking for. We start digging and digging and digging, and then it becomes an obsession. And this morning, Adam, maybe even more than I did, descended into madness on part of our topic today.
I had work I was supposed to do. I was supposed to do something else.
But did you have
Curse
fun?
You.
It's not my fault. It's Apple's fault. But yeah, especially when the answer should be knowable. Right?
Yeah.
That's the key feature.
What we were trying to do was, it was not fuzzy. It should not have been fuzzy. There should have been data that could be counted. Like in Sesame Street. One wonderful photo, two wonderful photos.
Exactly. Well, we're going to try to not start there. But if I know us, we're going to get there fairly quickly. And now if I can remember which of my 48 different text documents I use to do these notes. Oh, yes, it was in a Google Doc this time. Well, we wanted to start by talking about the iPhone 17 and versus the Pro and maybe last year's phone, and kind of talk about, Adam's holding up his 17, and I've got my 17 Pro here. And what the differences are and where you might want to think about making those choices. Is that a good way to tee it up, Adam?
Yeah, I think so. Where I came to this is that I had a 16 Pro. I've had a 15 Pro and a 14 Pro, et cetera, because they're the best, right? You know, Babe got...
It says Pro in the name.
It says Pro in the name, right? I am a professional. I don't just play one on the internet. And so, you know, for the longest time, I've been getting kind of the high-end phone because they're really better. And particularly when it comes to photos. And although I don't consider myself a professional photographer by any stretch of the imagination, I'm kind of a little offended by bad photos. You know, like I don't know very much about photography. I don't actually wish to know very much about photography. Focal length, blah 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 blah. Don't care. Just don't care. I just want good photos. And so I'm always frustrated when I don't get good photos for one reason or another. And, you know, obviously the iPhone's photos have been getting better and better every year. And Apple, for the most part, is on my side, right? You know, all the computation, the cameras get better, the computational photography's gotten better. Apple's doing a lot of work behind the scenes, 15 images, stitching them together, HDRs, blah, 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 blah. Don't care as long as it comes up with better photos. And so last year was the first year where I'm like, why am I getting the 16 Pro? Do I really need the 16 Pro? And then they said, there will be 48 megapixel macro photography. I love macro photography. One of my favorite things in the entire world to do is to stuff my phone into a flower and take photos. I have hundreds and hundreds of macro photos of the insides of flowers, which are really cool looking. They look like Vorlon space things half the time. And so I got suckered into the 16 Pro because of the 48 megapixel macro photography, which I then wrote a huge article about why it didn't help at all.
Oh. I don't remember exactly what was the issue with that.
Well, basically the problem is that you had to do a whole bunch of switching. I have this huge article you can find from last September that basically there's these kind of two macro modes in the iPhone. There's auto macro mode, which is what happens when you get close to things, which is again sort of the Apple way of doing things. But if you do that, you do not get a 48 megapixel photo. You get a 12 megapixel photo. And then there's this something I call the manual macro mode, which takes 48 megapixel shots. And for that, you've got to turn on HEIF Max or RAW Max. And then you've got to manually select the ultra wide camera, the 0.5x zoom. And so you do get a 48 megapixel photo then, but is it better? Not clear. And I have this article where I go through a whole bunch of stuff, and finally when I kind of came down to it, I was like, it didn't really seem enough better to me for someone like me who is not going to edit photos after the fact. Like if you're a pro photographer and you're going to be bringing this thing into Lightroom and as soon as look at it, then yeah, you probably want the 48 megapixel HEIF Max or RAW Max photo so that you can work on it. I am never going to do that.
You just want to shove your camera into a flower and get a pretty picture.
And believe me, you can do that. I have a lot of pretty pictures. So I just want to shove the camera into a flower and get a really nice picture of all the pollen and the stamens and the pistils, and the colors are amazing. It's just great. But it is one of those things where it turns out 12 megapixels was plenty for that. So basically, all my macro photos are 12 megapixels. And so why do I have this big 48 megapixel
pro camera?
Yeah, why did I spring for the pro camera? And so this year, with all the changes that Apple made to the iPhone 17, including bringing that 48 megapixel ultra wide camera to the iPhone 17, I'm like, I don't think there's any reason at all to go for the 617 Pro this year. Not 100% true, of course. There are still improvements in the 17 Pro, particularly on the other end of the spectrum, where you've got the 4x and 8x zoom, as opposed to what we had before, 3x and 5x, I guess.
Right, 3x and poopy 5x.
Poopy 5. Oh, I didn't see that in the interface. A little emoji right next to it. That's why it never worked well for me.
You just missed it. It was in there. Well, last week we did have Bart. Well, actually, I don't know when this is airing, so it'll be some number of weeks ago. Bart came on and we got into a real deep discussion that you would be bored to tears with, of exactly how they're making the 8x, the 4x, the 35 millimeter zoom and all that.
The cropping it out of the middle and blah, blah,
gory
blah.
details. Yeah, cropping out of the middle. And is that the same as if you took the other picture and then cropped it, and it got into all of those details? So we have just talked about that. But I think what was interesting in you looking at it is you were thinking about what photos make me happy.
Yes. And what photos will I be unhappy if I can't take? Or, do I want to be able to take? And it turned out there was no longer a plain versus pro difference there. Probably wasn't the 16 either.
For you.
For me.
For you.
For my macro, for the photos that make me happy, that I was not doing that. And we'll talk more about the other end of the spectrum on the zoom, because, I did take photos using the 5x zoom, but they didn't make me happy.
So to make sure everybody's on the same page, the iPhone 17 versus the 16 got the higher resolution, bigger screen. It's 6.3 inches. It used to be 6.1. It got ProMotion and always on. Personally, I don't understand why people are going crazy that it's got ProMotion, because I remember when ProMotion first came out and everybody said, yeah, I can't tell. And now it's like, well, it's got to have ProMotion. I got to have 120 hertz refresh rate, blah, 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 all that. I don't know that one's as important as everybody thinks it is now. But now it's got better battery life. It's got a way better front camera. It's got center stage. It's got dual capture, which, by the way, they don't point out that dual capture is only on video. You can't dual capture a photo. You can only, unless I'm missing it.
No,
it's only on video.
I think that's true.
It's got better stabilization. Both back cameras are now 48 megapixel fusion cameras on the 17. So maybe you'll get 48 megapixel photos when you cram it into a photo.
Well, I still won't, I think, because I think it's still wrong, but we'll see. I haven't had a chance to test that yet. I don't believe they've changed how the macro
Actually, I took a bunch this morning on my walk because of what you had said and what we were going to be talking about, so I'll check. It's double the storage at 256 gigabytes. It used to come with 128 when the 16. And it's slightly larger, but it's only 4% heavier. So it's got a massive advantages over the 16. And there isn't much different between the 17 and the 17 Pro anymore, other than that 8X camera. There's a few things.
The Yeah, there's definitely some improvements. They fall into the, like, if you don't know what these words mean, specifically, I have to look them up even. Like,
Come on, Academy coloring coding. Aren't you going to use that? What about Apple Log?
Genlock?
Yeah, there's Genlock. There's ProRes video recording up to 4K at 120 frames per second.
Yeah.
Not going to use that?
Yeah, here we go. Yeah, ProRes raw capture and Genlock synchronization. Okay, that's nice. It falls into that's nice, dear.
Well, I think what you and I were talking about earlier is we realized, you know who the 17 Pro is for? Pros.
Well, I've written about this long ago, which I'm actually offended by that because I am a professional. I'm simply not a professional videographer or a professional photographer. I am a professional writer and journalist and publisher. And so I'm a little offended at the kind of the limitation of pro to a couple of very, very specific fields. Because there's things that as a professional writer and publisher and journalist that I would like to see changed, but I'm not getting any of that. So,
well, I remember when Andy Anatko was talking about the pro moniker, and he said, I'm a professional writer, but I could probably do my job on a typewriter today. It is a thing that you could do, and so a lot of the features, and I think that's one of the reasons that the MacBook Air has suddenly become not a shameful device to carry around. It's like, oh, I'm not a pro. I just have a MacBook Air. It's like, it does 98% of what I need to do. I do end up using my MacBook Pro for the podcasting stuff because I actually am a pro, Adam. But it's the same. I think it's getting to be the same thing with the cameras.
I'm a pro, you're a pro, we're all. And as I said, it's been true on the Mac side for quite a long time. I mean, I still remember when I switched from a Mac Pro to a 27-inch iMac. Mm-hmm. And the screen really sold me on it. I mean, that 27-inch Retina display. But the fact of the matter was that I was able to go to what previously had been in Steve Jobs' Matrix. The iMac was the consumer box, and so I was a little offended back then too. Kind of in the I am a professional. I need the Pro device, but I just couldn't justify it. And and now the Mac Pro is ludicrous. I mean, I'm sure there are people who buy one. I don't, interact with any of them on a regular basis.
So, John Siracusa has been tracking the single core and dual core performance of the Mac Pro that he has, which has the quadruple double secret Xeon processors in it, versus the iPhone chips. And the A19 has been now outperforms single core performance, and now it just barely beat dual core or multi-core performance of the Xeons in his Mac Pro. The phone chip is beating the Mac Pro now.
Precisely.
That's embarrassing.
And that's just it. There's like the A19 Pro, I'm sure there's got more performance than the A19 in my iPhone 17.
Yeah.
Do I notice? No. Have not noticed a single thing. Admittedly, again, I don't do video. I don't play high-end games. I don't play any games. So those, the things that might stress it, I don't do any of those things. But so it's just another example of why, pro means pro now, and unless you really are going for pro, that this is something that's going to change your work life, it's a much harder decision to just say, oh, I need the best, because you're getting stuff you don't, you're paying for stuff you're never going to use.
There's another piece to that. On MacBreak Weekly, they were talking about the fact that the new phones come with 256 gig, which is awesome. And Alex Lindsay, who is a professional video guy who does crazy stuff, he said he is not going to buy the terabyte anymore. Because he looked back and he said, with the exception of 2 recording events he went to where he did something bananas with a, red 360, whatever, crazy thing he was doing, he has never even come close to 512.
Oh, interesting.
And so if Alex Lindsay doesn't need a terabyte, guess what? All y'all listening, you don't need a terabyte.
I've been using 256 for quite a while because I bumped I bumped over 128 by just a little, quite a few years ago. And then I'm just like, I'm nowhere near, I'm like, I don't know, 50 gigabytes or 70 gigabytes under. So I
have a theory. I have a theory. And this theory, which is mine, says that people who have bought more and think they need more. So if you've got 512 right now and you look at your phone and you're using something more than 256, the reason, and Adam, you can tell me if I'm all wet about this, the reason that might be happening is because you have 512. So because of the optimized images in photos, it shrinks them down to fit the space allowed. It stops downloading them. It only keeps downloaded the size that will fit, right? Isn't that true? I mean, I've got 110,000 photos, more than like 1.2 terabytes on my MacBook Pro because it's full res. I'm well under 256 on my phone. Yeah. I'm convinced if I got 512, it would be using more than 256. I can't prove it.
Question. I don't know if the optimization is adaptive. That's what you're suggesting, basically.
Well,
correct?
It must be. If I've got
but
1.2 terabytes on my Mac.
It just it has to be shrink. It has to be giving you some kind of thumbnail on the phone. But it could just be we give you a thumbnail that is 200K. If it's just set, then you could still run out of space with an optimized library.
It's possible. Okay, so I need to hear from somebody who's got a photos library that's at least 1.2 terabyte on disk with full-size images, and you bought a 512 phone, and tell me how much space you're using. That would be the. I don't do a lot of video, so that also might help.
Yeah, it's a tough one to pin down. I'm trying to think, how would you? Because it feels like what you'd need to do. Well, okay, so I have here. Let me see. I am sitting here with an iPhone SE. Which is it's Tanya's old phone, so it is. Is it going to tell me? What is it going to tell me? How much space?
Good radio.
Okay, this is a 64 gig phone.
Okay,
and apparently I have 28.74 gigabytes available.
And so how many images are on there?
Well, it's my full library, right? I mean,
is it really
all there? I mean, it should be. I mean,
because you have shared photo library between?
Yeah. I use it's an iCloud photo library. So if I go to years and I go back to, say, 2004 and I tap in, there's all the photos there.
Yep. So I might be onto something.
Right. So if this fits, okay, so let's see. If I go into, what is it? It's general.
To the audience while he's working.
iPhone
this
storage.
This is the madness that we were describing earlier.
Yeah.
Just have facts.
You're making me do this stuff. Where do they put iPhone storage? Okay, 35 of 64 gigabytes used. And photos is using 9.2 gigabytes. Whereas if I go to my iPhone 17.
With its 256.
Which is 256. 196 of 256 used. Photos is using, it's not that different. 11.43 gig versus 9.2 gig.
Huh.
And that actually implies that there probably are some photos there are a lot of photos I've taken on this phone that are taking up more. They haven't been optimized yet because there is plenty of space.
Actually, so it's not this is getting interesting. My photos library is taking 24 gigabytes on my 256 on the iPhone 17 Pro.
Mm-hmm. So not that much.
No.
Now what's really sucking space for me is music, where it's just cached a bunch of stuff.
Well, that's a personal problem. Who uses music?
Well, it could just go away. I don't care, right? The only reason why I let it do that is because where I live, we don't actually have great internet access everywhere. And so it's annoying if you want to play music in the car and you're in a dead zone.
Right. I just meant, why would you listen to music? That's what I was talking
Oh,
about.
I didn't realize you were against music in general. Okay,
you've missed a memo. We'll have to talk. The audience has heard way too many times that, no, I don't listen to any music at all, ever.
Okay. All right, then.
So let's see, where were we going with this? So we got into talking about this level, and Adam was saying, well, you don't need the 17 Pro because who would need the 5X? And I was like, I am all about the 5X. I take 5X pictures, or I was about the 5X, except for it being a poopy camera. And I was really looking forward to the 8X. So as soon as I saw the 8X on the 17 Pro, there was no other factor about the phone that mattered to me.
Right.
They could have made it with 128 and I would have bought it. They could have gotten rid of the wide angle lens for me. I don't care. I take some photos with it, but they don't make me happy. But what makes me happy is when we were on a lake in Michigan and the kids were out on an inner tube out behind the boat and we were flinging them around, was to be able to zoom way in on them and take really cool photos. And I got some awesome photos of them flying nearly to their death. It was fantastic.
And they weren't blurry.
I take pictures of birds. No, they were great. Now, broad daylight, like bright sunny day on a lake. There was plenty of light.
Bright sun makes a huge difference.
Yeah. I like to take pictures of birds far away. And those seem like rarely get a good one flying, but we'll see.
Look, there's a bird.
But sitting still, it's pretty fun. I love zooming in on stuff. I just love it. And I'm never happy with my wide angle shots.
And so in contrast to that, and we can explain how we got to this point, I discovered that I basically take two types of 5X zoom shots in the last year. I take a lot of race photos, people in cross-country races, running races, which all come out badly. There's just almost no hope for, and I mean, the iPhone has never taken a good action shot. I mean, I don't know when Apple's showing off their stuff in the things, they have people skateboarding and doing tricks and whatnot, and they get these great photos. I think they're making it up. I mean, I cannot get a good photo of simple people running.
Now, are you running while you're taking the photos? I'm
standing there, like there.
Just checking. Maybe you're bouncing a lot.
And I've tried, like from the side, from the front, and I can't control what the day is like. So sometimes it's sunny, sometimes it's cloudy. The cloudier it is, the worse the photos are, et cetera, et cetera. They're always blurry. And part of it is I always also need to zoom. One of the photos that I do edit are race photos because you often can't get as close as you want. And so basically it's this big landscape with a fairly small runner in it. And so I want to zoom in on the runner or the couple of runners so that you can see what's happening in the race for the photo. And,
right.
The friend of mine who sometimes comes to our races with her lens that's this long, she gets good photos. So they're not fuzzy, and she can zoom in just fine with her 1.5 foot long lens. Well, maybe a foot long lens. So I know it's possible, maybe just not with an iPhone. Right, but anyway,
right.
so that's
with
type
a small
one.
Sensor size and zoom way in, you're not going to get a lot of light. So it's gonna be harder.
Right. And then type 2 is the serendipitous wildlife photos of, hey, look, there's a fox. We don't see foxes very often. So I have a lot of fuzzy photos of backsides of foxes or turkeys or deer or something.
So you're not going to be able to do that with your new 17.
Yeah, but who cares? They're fuzzy anyway. I should throw them out. They're lousy photos. I mean, that's just it. It's like, if I try to do it and I get a bad photo, I'm no worse off than when I did it with the 5X and got a bad photo. So,
right.
It's like there's really it's not like I'm losing anything. I'm simply trading one bad photo for another bad photo.
Yeah. Do you have you don't have a 4X? You have a 1X and a 2X and a 0.5? Is that right?
Yes. Okay. When I go into the camera app, I have 1X, 2X, and then I can get digital zoom up to 10X, which of course is it's digital.
Don't do that.
Which isn't terribly different from what Apple's doing with the other one, but we won't get into that.
Well, you'll have to listen to the previous episode with Bart to understand why it is. It is different. It's what I would do is I would take it at 2X and then crop it in photos or and you'll get a better shot than if you do the analog zoom with your fingers.
Yeah. Now, I once long ago I sort of got on a hobby horse about this, and I was actually taking a lot of photos at different zoom levels, and then comparing them to the same photo taken at lower zooms than cropped. And I decided that Apple was actually if I remember correctly, I decided that Apple was doing some stuff in the zooming computationally to make it better than you thought.
So when I was talking to Bart in this recent episode, as long as you're within the range of zooms that it wants you to take, that it shows you the optical zooms, scrolling between them isn't bad. So doing like on the iPhone 17 Pro, if you went to 3.8, that's still good. That's not bad. But if you go above the 8X, then you're making up data. It's fake.
Oh, you are, but the question is Apple's computational photography able to make up data better than you would get by just cropping?
Well, you wouldn't be making any data up if you crop it.
Well, you'll have, but in essence,
it depends on how big you're blowing it up.
And then blowing it up.
Yeah, but we're not blowing it up on giant screens anymore.
No, but you have to blow it up the same size as the other, and then compare.
No, you don't. No, you don't. You have to blow it up as big as you need it to be. You don't have to blow it up to as big as it can be.
See, the other problem with all this is that what do you do with photos?
Right.
Like that's the other thing here is like, what do we really care? And so that's like, I'm a fairly great believer, and I don't throw stuff out. So photos, I will really only throw out photos if they are truly bad photos. They're blurry, my fingers in them, whatever. Or if they're duplicates and I can't really tell the difference of which duplicate is better, like, oh, they're not, they're just so close, I'll just delete, I'll keep one. So, but the fact is, I only look at photos on my Mac or the Apple TV maybe, or the phone. I don't print them. That would be insanity talking.
Well, we should get into, speaking of insanity, now we have to talk about where we went next. So in ye olden days, I remember going into Apple Photos and saying, okay, make me a smart album that shows me all of the telephoto photos I took between this date and this date on this camera. And I had little drop downs and I could do that. And somewhere along the line in the last couple of years, it's become more and more obfuscated. And I posted out on Mastodon saying, actually, I haven't checked that yet to see if anybody came back with an answer, but we know they couldn't have, whether
right,
there is
possible.
still a way to do that. And no, I haven't gotten a single response on that. And then I mentioned it to Adam in the notes. I wrote some little note about it. And that's where Adam lost the rest of his day, his morning.
So I had this idea.
There seemed to be a programmatic way to do it.
Problematically programmatic? It's both. So I'd had this idea, right? Before I decided, before the iPhone 17 actually, before I had to make the decision. So Apple had announced it. And pre-orders were not open. I was like, I wonder how many 5X photos I took. And I ran into exactly what you said.
That's what we were getting into the discussion. Do we really know how much we're using the 5X versus the wide? How much
do I do this? And I ran exactly, I was like, well, there's aperture, there's camera model, there's flash, there's focal length, there's ISO, there's lens, and there's shutter speed. Yeah. And it's entirely unclear what even goes in some of those things, because, I still am not sure.
One of my favorite things about that is I was trying to do it by lens. And if you put in iPhone 16 Pro and then you say lens and then you'll get a drop down of all of the choices. Or you can start typing iPhone 16 Pro and it'll fill in the options. But the options are longer than the field it's typing in, and you can't see what it's choosing.
Yeah, you're right. It's this little pop down.
Little tiny window. You can't make it bigger. I started copying and pasting it out into a text document so I could see what it was choosing. But you would think the 5X, for example, it says it's 120 millimeters, right? That's what we learned today. Does it say 120 millimeters on that on any photos taken by that lens? No, it does not. So then you go, okay, well, 120 millimeters, that must be the 35 millimeter equivalent. So what's the crop factor on that lens? Unknowable. Unless you take the answer and divide the two and get and surmise that value, but you can't do it programmatically. Right?
Okay, so if you hover over things in that little drop down menu that you can't, it does expand them so you can read them all.
Okay.
So there's iPhone 16 Pro back triple camera, 15.66 millimeters f/2.8. Okay. Hey, look at that.
Are
That
you
could
are you
actually
doing a
work.
smart album again, Adam? We don't know where you
Yeah.
are. You're just
Yeah,
off
that's a
in your
smart.
own
That's a
little
smart
madness.
album, and it actually looks like it. It looks like it may have found, well, some of them
No.
anyway.
So what? So starting in smart albums,
Smart
you've
album.
told
So,
it.
okay, so I've got lens is, and then I started typing iPhone 16 Pro, and then I chose the back triple camera 15.
But how did you find that?
I was scrolling.
How did you find iPhone 16 Pro?
I was just scrolling. I just literally scrolled through the huge list.
Oh, you use the drop. Oh, okay. If you click the little drop down, it starts telling you.
Right. Then you get this.
Okay.
Then you get this. Okay, this is insanity. So there's this back
Giant-
triple camera.
Okay, we're now looking at a giant list, and we're scrolling through. It's got iPads. Even though I just told it I want it to be the iPhone 16 Pro, it's showing me every
Yeah, it's
lens
got
that I
everything.
could possibly choose. So let's go. 16. What are we looking for now? We're going to look for the.
16 Pro.
So we've got the back camera
15.
15.66,
Yeah.
back camera 2.2, back camera
I think that's ultra-wide.
6.765.
I think 2.2 is ultra wide.
Well, so we don't
it
know. So this is where you have to know the answer in order to find the answer, right?
Well, we have somewhat different approaches here. You want to understand what the cameras are. I don't give a damn. I just want to map 1-to-1. I don't care the 15.6 random, whatever. So
Okay,
yes,
but I still don't know.
it's
I've got
15.66
triple camera
is the-
15.66.
that's
2.2.
the telephoto.
How do you
2.2
know?
is the ultra wide.
You only know that because the madness we did before, right?
No, I know it because I know it in part because I'm now looking at them. I selected it, and so I can see that they're macro photos.
Okay, so there's like 26 different options for lens for iPhone 16 Pro. So tell me this, which one do you think is the telephoto 5X? The 120 millimeter equivalent is
The 15.
15.66?
I just crashed photos. Yes, the 15.66.
Okay. Yeah, those might be zooms.
That is smart album.
It says there's 411 photos, Adam, and I think we know that there's more. Okay, so I'm going to let Adam keep enjoying his little I would say tertiary dive into madness, but this is not tertiary by this point. So Adam's
There's
went
also
over
a couple
to
of 15s.
Stop it. Stop it. He went to ChatGPT and said, "Okay, you got to be able to help us." Now, how did you go forward from there?
So I said basically exactly what we were just talking. I want to identify which photos I have taken, and it said, yeah, you really can't do that with a smart album because that Apple does not expose the EXIF data. EXIF is the metadata that's built into every image, with all the camera details that are associated with it. And it said, but there's this app called a command line tool called EXIF tool. And you can get EXIF tool, and luckily I didn't even have to use Homebrew. There's a download, although it's not signed by Apple, so you have to go through the are you sure that you really want to subject your Mac to this super dangerous thing and blah blah blah.
That sounds way easier than brew install EXIF tool.
Yes, it is. I do not like command line installations of things. Makes me nervous.
Okay.
So
this is
so
sort of like
anyway.
I'm in the opposite of Bartland right now, but okay.
Yeah, right. So basically, then I went down the rabbit hole with ChatGPT.
Actually, wait. Let's stop for a second. EXIF tool is a command line application. Yes. He just doesn't want to install it that way, so he's going to go to the terminal to run it.
So yes, totally happy to ChatGPT gives me things to paste into the terminal, and so we start going back and forth. And in fact, it finds this stuff. It finds that this information is in the EXIF data. But it's not necessarily what you'd expect. Again, it's not 120, it's 15.66 or something. And so after, much discussion, it's starting to giving me commands that I'm pasting in and trying to figure out the results. And
blindly, without understanding.
Blindly without. It's like, okay, I really need a script to do this. So I get a script out. And it's starting to kick out data. And I'm like, well, it's actually giving me numbers. But how do I check them?
Well, I think what was fun was you were doing it and getting stuff that looked like it might be reasonable, and then I would run it. And we had a point in time where it was giving you macro photos, and I looked at mine, and a bunch of them were not. And so that was when I think the check on the other end helped you keep going, okay, what is it doing wrong?
Well, and the problem is the ultra wide camera is used for multiple things. So you can just take like a big landscape that's super wide with the ultra wide camera, or you can zoom in a lot and use it for, like get really close to the inside of a flower and take a macro photo, and they're quite different. And
right. Oh, and that's where you found a secret value.
Yes.
There's a value greater than or equal to 80 or something. And I asked you what were the units, and you said magical units or something.
Yeah, right. Things. There are things. It appears to just be a number that Apple sort of sets. But yeah, it's like this focus position.
Focus position. And that turned out to be critical because that allowed you to separate out, once you found what that was, we were able to find the one for 5X versus the ultra wide.
Yeah. Yeah. That was that gave me the difference between a true ultra wide and a macro ultra wide.
Oh, is that what it was? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So, because the 5X are actually easy because they're a different focal length. So yeah, I mean, if you actually tell EXIF tool to like dump all the EXIF data for an image, you'll get pages and pages of this stuff. Which you don't read at all. You paste it into ChatGPT and ask it to make sense of it. Because it's just, again, this is the sort of thing where I do not wish to become an expert in this stuff. I simply want an answer of how many macro photos, how many telephoto photos, et cetera, et cetera. And so,
but the best way to do that was, I thought you came up with something really inventive, or you prompted ChatGPT to come up with something inventive, was if it gives me these values, and we do end up with a table with the script that you ended up with, we have a table of the names of the different lenses or cameras and how many of each photo. But the way you got it to allow you to verify, I thought was really interesting.
The verify, that was the key, because that was the problem. It gives you these numbers, you're like, well, I don't know. That sounds good. Is it right? How do you, again, everything with a chatbot, how do you prove that it's right? And so, I mean, I didn't doubt that its code was doing what the code was supposed to do. I didn't know if it was doing what I wanted it to do. So along with the little table of numbers, I said, put a folder on my desktop, and inside that, make a folder for each of these cameras. And two for ultra wide, one for ultra wide and one for macros, the true macro photos, and then symlink the photos from the Photos Originals library, because where all these things sit on the disk in general. And the beauty of the symlinks, they don't take up space because they're just a Unix thing. But because the Finder sees them as real, you can use Quick Look. So you can just, hit the space bar and then use the arrow keys to kind of zoom through them going, yeah. Ooh, that one's really wrong. Why is that wrong? And anyone that's wrong, you can say open in preview and then look at more of the EXIF data in preview. Preview actually shows you much more EXIF data than Photos does.
Right. So I love this script because it creates these buckets into a folder, and then puts the symlinks into the buckets, and he's got it for macro, ultra wide, wide, telex 3x, telex 5x, and what was the last one? Scroll other, which we'll get it interesting in that. I had a little trouble running it at first because I did not have terminal, did not have full disk access, so I I
must have given it to it at some point. Yeah.
I had to ask ChatGPT, why am I getting this error? Why can't it run this command that it's working for Adam? So got it to work out.
And selfies. It also gives you a folder for selfies.
Oh, yeah, selfies. That's embarrassing. Steve and I are big old selfie people. Actually, here's a question. Do we have the originals for photos taken by other people in our shared photo library?
Yes, we do.
Okay. So I could blame all these selfies on Steve.
Yes, you could do that. So, in fact, one of the other things I ran into was I had this weird other category, and when I looked at them, I didn't quite understand them. And at some point, because I also keep in mind, I have 10,000 photos from the last year. So I set the script so you could set it to run only on things since a certain date, so limit it to something reasonable. And what I realized is like I had a bunch of photos I took with my iPad because I was documenting the process of transferring data from the iPhone 16 Pro to the iPhone 17. And so
you needed another camera.
I needed another camera, right? Precisely. And similarly, Tanya's old iPhone SE, which I'm using for various things, a few of its photos were in my library, and so I also had it go and like parse out, all the other devices, which is kind of interesting.
Right. And that's where we came across, I realized I was looking at this one, it said it was taken with an iPhone SE second generation. I don't even know anybody. I looked at the photo. It's my friend John Zellner. He took a picture of some of his art and he shared that photo with me through a text message.
Yep.
So
as long as the metadata is still in the photo.
Coming in too. Yeah.
Now, it would be interesting because, the one thing that people have gotten into been a little careful with metadata sharing is location. So sometimes you do not want your location metadata stored with the image when you're sharing it. But so yes, you can end up with some things there. Unfortunately, as we discovered when we were looking into it just before starting the show, it's still making some mistakes. Like there's photos which it's identifying correctly as being from a different camera, but they're not in the date range that they should be allowed. I don't know why that is yet.
I haven't confirmed what Adam's seeing. One of the problems is the sim links are not, they all have today's date.
Yeah.
So we can't tell the day the photo was taken. For some reason, a lot of my photos are showing date last opened, which appears to be correct, but a lot of the photos were apparently never opened, is what it's saying. So I don't know what that means. But you said you found photos that were clearly from a different time.
Yeah. I've got ones that are just, they're from 2 and 3 years ago. So they should, all my tests were at least in the last year, and most of the tests were before then. So there's something going on there, which I have to figure out with ChatGPT and see why it's doing it. ChatGPT and I have gone through a number of iterations on the architecture of this script. And so, because at various times it's done things that are also really, really slow. It's now down to slow, but not painfully slow. So there are, basically, if it has to parse through all 48,000 images in my library, that tends to make it problematic in the terribly slow.
Yeah, it took about, 10 or 12 minutes to go through around 5,000 photos for me. Now, the other thing we found interesting was this process, this shell script he has it as written as of this instant in time is 5,444 photos. I made a smart album of iPhone 16 Pro photos from that time range. Actually, I got to double check how that worked. It's not the same number of photos though.
Maybe that's people who gave you photos. Other people who gave you photos. If you did i16 Pro. If you didn't do just photos from the last year, but if you tried
photos
to limit it to
from
16
the
Pro.
same date range, iPhone 16 Pro was 5244, and just the 16 Pro ones from the script is 5013. So it's different.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, it's at least there you could go through the smart album and scroll, and then zip through in Symlinks and sort of see if something jumps out at you. A couple hundred is enough that maybe you'd be able to find one fairly quickly that didn't appear to be in both.
Yeah, I don't know how I'm going to find I'd have to look through all 5,000 photos in both to be able to see what's not there. In my libraries, I tend to have relatively, like 1 or 2 photos here and there, and then 150 photos from the same event, like a race, frankly. For me, it's usually relatively obvious when I've got something that's like, oh, what is that? That seems wrong. Or I recognize the people in it as could not have been in this year, that kind of thing. Yeah, I don't know that I'm willing to flip through 5,000 to see if that's right or wrong.
Come on. You got the bone. Worry that bone to death.
So let's assume that it's close on what you've got in terms of how many of these 5x photos you took, poopy 5x photos. How does that compare to how often you're using the macro mode?
So for my numbers, let's see. It says that the macro, I've taken 265 real macro photos. The telephoto 5X, it says 386, but again, those are race photos. So there's probably 15, 20 in there that are like wildlife, blurry wildlife shots. And the bulk is really the normal camera. So, and then, as far as ultra wide, but not macro, it was like 50. So there's a few there. I mean, I'm relatively infrequently saying, I want a fish, I want the big wide image of some kind of landscapey thing. So in essence, yes, it told me what I wanted to know.
I just realized looking at your data one more time, and I hate to keep going through numbers people can't see right here, but those numbers don't come close to adding up to 10,000.
No,
those numbers add up to like 1,500.
I think you have to add up all the ones in the others to get to the 10,000, and that's why I was like, oh crumb, it's gone and gotten something confused again.
Yeah,
it's always had that 10,470 number, but I'm not sure what that's based on. It's also, now that I'm seeing some older images that are not from the last year, I'm wondering if its date checking is looking at some date other than what we think the date should be,
like a modification date instead
precisely,
of
a modification date or a last open date, maybe. I'm not saying that's it specifically, but there may be. It feels like there could be something that it's getting confused about. What's so fussy about this is you can't just like look at the EXIF data for a file quickly and easily. I mean, like you have to use EXIF tool to look at that data or preview, maybe if you're lucky. But it's a lot of black boxy things where you're kind of pulling at strings and seeing what
you've got to look at find ones that are wrong, look at them to try to figure out where the algorithm got it wrong.
Right.
Now, so mine is fairly close. It's around 5,000 16 Pro photos taken in the last year. And like I said, 5244 or something like that in photos. So that seems fairly close. And it found that I took almost the same percentage of macro, selfie, and 5X photos. So, but again, the zoom really makes me happy.
Yeah.
So
I guess it was not that many photos, but when you wanted it bad.
Well, it's still it's like 8% telephoto, right. The 5X telephoto. And if you have the 3X and the, oh wait, this can't be right. Now it says 3X is 0. This is not what we're looking for.
I was going to say these droids, there's something this was definitely not something that was ready to disseminate.
To talk to?
Well, we could talk about it, but definitely wouldn't want to show other people this stuff.
Because there is no 2X. There is no 2X camera on the 16 Pro. I'm sorry, there is no 3X. There's a 2X.
Yeah. I wonder how it got that confused.
That's probably how it found 0.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we might need some more massaging on this. Can we trust that you'll continue to obsess a little bit more?
Maybe, although I'm not quite sure. I do have to get some other stuff done, and man, does this suck the time. Because part of the problem is that it can be quite tricky when working on this sort of thing where you have to be constantly moving it out to be able to work on local data. And ChatGPT is not really good at changing just little itty bitty things.
Oh, yeah, you put it in and then it changes 4 other things when you're not looking?
Right, and so sometimes you change it, and you're like, oh, crumb, now we've gone backwards. Because that's why I'm a little annoyed, because we actually were getting some better numbers out of this. But I was focusing on the symlink stuff. I wasn't focusing on the actual numbers.
Right.
And so...
Well, if you do continue to obsess, can you have a date? Make it a date range, not just a start date? Because I want to capture the 16 Pro photos, and I know the dates that I had the camera that I owned that
precisely. Yeah, we can do a date range. The other thing I was thinking is what it would really make sense to do is to have like the symlinks have a top level folder for each device, and then inside that folder have the different lenses for each the device, even if they exist. So, I mean, maybe that's too much.
Even though it's got the wrong answer, which God bless AI always being wrong. Even though it's got the wrong answer, it is a creative solution that it creates these buckets. I like how it does that, and it creates them, and then it puts the symlinks in. That was really clever. I like that. But like you said, maybe not ready for prime time. But I think the bigger, wider point you wanted to make was that looking at your usage, maybe the correct answer isn't how many photos did you take at the different focal lengths.
Right.
The real answer is what photos made you happy.
Right. Yep.
And if they were all 5X, then you better get that 17 Pro. But if you really like shoving your camera into a flower, maybe that ultra wide is the one that you really care about, and you don't care about the zoom.
And it's not going to make any difference if you're on the 16 or the 17 or the 17 or the Pros. So, and
right.
and that's I do sort of, I mean, now that I've gone this far down the rabbit hole, I do kind of want to get it so that it at least feels like it's accurate, because I think the numbers are interesting. They really do reveal something. And the symlink approach is interesting too, because the numbers do not tell you if the photos made you happy. That's part of it. Is I went and looked at all my 5X photos and go, oh, those are all terrible. Or like literally those photos made me disappointed. I thought I had taken good photos, and then when I look at them, I'm like, oh, they're all fuzzy again. And so it was distressing. And whereas on the other hand, I look at my macro photos and I want, look at that flower. That's a great looking flower.
One last thing on taking flowers, I tend to back up and do it with like the 2X to get a nice fuzzy background. I like the shallower depth of field than what the macro gives me. The back, because almost every flower I see is in an urban environment, so you're going to see like somebody's garage door or a power line in the background or something. But if I can get far away and zoom up, I can actually obscure the stuff in the background a little bit and make it a little bit prettier.
You're not getting close enough. My flower shots have no background. I'm going all the way in. Like it's all color. The whole thing is color.
I do some like that, but sometimes I like the flower. So anyway, I guess the answer to all of this is your mileage may vary. And since there is some time before this will go live, if Adam comes up with a script that he is happy with and we think that it is vaguely close to the right answers, I will put it into the show notes. So this was fun as always, Adam. Last night we weren't sure what we were going to talk about, and we managed to find a lot of fun to talk about here.
Oh, there's always something. Always something.
All right, if people want to learn everything Adam has in his brain, it all comes out at tidbits.com. Is that right?
Maybe that of which it does come out, because there are definitely times when I'm like, yeah, I'm not writing an article about that. That didn't
all
actually
the news
solidify
that's fit to print.
Yeah, right. Precisely. Fit to print is the question. And,
all right, Adam.
I hope this turns into one. Put it that way.
All right. We'll talk to you soon, Adam. Bye.
Okay. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Chit Chat Across the Pond. Did you notice there weren't any ads in the show? That's because this show is not ad-supported. It's supported by you. If you learned something, or maybe you were just entertained, consider contributing to the Podfeet podcast. You can do that by going over to podfeet.com and look for the big red button that says Support the Show. When you click that button, you're going to find different ways to contribute. You can donate one time through the big Donate button with a credit card or Apple Pay, or you can use PayPal. If you want to make a recurring contribution, click the Patreon button. Keep in mind, I don't charge Patreon for Chit Chat Across the Pond or Program by Stealth episodes, just once a month for the NosillaCast. That keeps it simple. If you want to contact me for any reason, you can email me at allison@podfeet.com, and you can follow me on Mastodon at podfeet.com/Mastodon. If you want to talk to other NosillaCastaways, you can do that in our Slack group at podfeet.com/Slack. Thanks for listening, and stay subscribed.